what made you stay in the fight? Because you could have said, you probably could have joined someone else or something else. You could have returned back to government or joined a brokerage shop. You could have done a lot of things. I'm sure you had the connections and the know-how, but what kept you sticking to SDS Capital?
It's a great question. My husband has asked me that 100 times over 20 years. I didn't know how hard it was going to be. I really didn't, and entrepreneurs, I think, are in general pretty optimistic people and thinking that, I can make this happen. I have the vision. Here's how. I had no idea. It was at least 10 times harder than I thought it was going to be. I really made a big miscalculation. When I started, in 2001, I was 31 years old when I started SDS. And I really thought, after helping launch 3 Genesis funds with private capital, I thought, oh, wow, this is the tip of the iceberg. The investment world is ready for impact funds. There just aren't any out there for them to invest in. I mean, that was my thought process as a 31-year-old wanting to make change and make a difference. And so if I can just help build more of these, they will come. I mean, that was my little business plan in my head, right? If I could just build them, they will come.
How wrong I was.
Well, I was completely wrong. I mean, it was, what I didn't calculate was that those 3 Genesis funds were pretty much all the same investors. I mean, if you look at who invested in them, so they were duplicates. So it wasn't really 200 million of new capital in these different funds. It was the same 15 investors in each of the 3 funds. And they were pretty much all banks. And they were banks for a simple reason. Banks are under Community Reinvestment Act. So they have requirements to look for these types of innovative investments that have impact on low-income communities. And there were just a few foundations that were in them. But I made the mistake of thinking, wow, we raised 200 million. What we really did was we attracted 15 investors to something that was new. And there really wasn't much appetite when you go back to 2000. I mean, impact investing didn't exist. Back then we called it double bottom line: do good, do well, make money, make a difference. And then it became triple bottom line, adding the environmental on. And then impact investing is sort of newer, in the last 10 years. But there really wasn't a whole lot of appetite. Back then there was social investing, which was more put your money in some type of mutual funds that screens for maybe a few things. And it was very concessionary. It wasn't the concept of risk-adjusted market rates of return. It was, hey, you're going to make a difference. We're supporting, investing in companies that are doing good things, but you might have a lower return. And it was actually handicaps impact funds like ours where we've had to sort of re-educate investors. Well, wait a minute, there's a genre of impact funds today, 20 years later, where we are actually seeking risk-adjusted market rates of return, right along with the other fund managers that are non-impact. And so evaluate us based on our track record and what we're doing. Don't just think that we're concessionary, below market, giving you a return that's below what you'll otherwise get. So it was tough because most investors, they weren't there yet. They just weren't there.
Oh, wow. They weren't there yet. Would you say they're there now?
There are more there now. There are more. And, there's so much going on with ESG and impact and how it's different in different industries. And ESG, of course, is a huge issue now globally. And of course, there's a backlash happening in the US for different reasons. That's a whole nother topic for another day. But when you think about impact, when you hear impact funds, most of that nowadays is focused on clean energy, climate change, whether it's venture capital, private equity, clean water, new energies, solar, and technologies. I mean, impact is very broad. When you look at the ESG and the whole, we are the S. We're poverty, social. And the poverty portion of kind of this impact spectrum, so to speak, is quite narrow compared to the clean energy and green technology, all the money going into that. And so, I think it's almost easier to sell institutional investors on, hey, we've got big water issues globally and in the US in certain geographies. So these clean water technologies could make you a lot of money. A lot of venture capital or energy or new ways of doing things can actually be extremely profitable. When I go to investors and they see that we're investing in the most distressed communities of America, their mind doesn't naturally flow to, I'm going to make money on this. Their mind goes to, oh, this sounds like something I could lose money on. So it is a much tougher sell to educate institutional investors in the S, in the poverty, part of the impact spectrum, that wait, here's why this is a good investment for you. And this is why you are going to make a market rate of return. They just focus on they're just picturing a very poor community and how are we going to get out of here with a decent rate of return. And for me, it's so straightforward, but it's not for everybody. And what to me is straightforward when you just look at affordable housing in our country. Here's the demand. Here's the supply. This is the problem. And this is where we're at. And we're finding the real estate developers that are here, and they know how to use private sector capital to do this really efficiently and to get the kinds of returns that our investors want. So we don't even view it as higher risk at all, because we're going into communities that haven't had any new affordable housing built in 30, 40, 50 years. And the pent-up demand is so strong. As soon as we fund the project and it's built, those units are filled and there's a wait list. So there's a big educational component that comes with what we do.